With every new update in GTA Online brings with it many new cars as well, so today we will be deciding which is the best car from every update, taking many factors into consideration including price, practicality, looks, and desirability. And if you do enjoy this video, please subscribe and leave a like as well. It greatly helps me in the YouTube algorithm so I can get recommended to more people, so we can grow the channel together. And now let's get started. For beach bums, the BF Bifta was on a short list of choices amongst the Kalahari and Paradise, so it was an easy choice. The Bifta is nothing too special though. It has some cool customizations but did fit the theme of the update well, with it being beach related and whatnot, and it actually handles quite nicely off-road as well, as it's quite small and nimble. It unfortunately has been taken off sale though, and good luck finding anyone with the Bifta. For Valentine's Day Massacre Special, the Roosevelt was an easy choice as well because it's just a beautiful vehicle with a good amount of mods as well. It was also the only vehicle to be added in this update. By far though, my favorite feature on the Roosevelt is the horn. It just sounds so unique. Please take a listen. For the business update, we have the Grotti Turismo R. It is a fine supercar. It has a decent amount of mods and came at a very fair price of $500,000 back in the day. The Jester is a good runner-up as well, but is outperformed by the Turismo R. I personally do prefer the looks of the Jester though. I think the Acura NSX is a beautiful looking supercar that was just greatly underappreciated in its time, but I'm gonna cut myself off on that tangent before I get started. For the High Life update, we have the Pegassi Zentorno, by far the most famous car in all of GTA Online. If you had this car back in the day, you had serious money, and it is still a decent car even today, with its rear being bulletproof and it having good customization options as well. Rockstar also went back to some of the older cars and added mods to them, and this was one of those cars to receive that treatment, so it has even more mods as well. This was a very easy pick. For the I'm Not a Hipster update, we have the Benefactor Panto, and very easy choice for this update as well. One of the most iconic cars of our generation, of course. Some may call it the meep, but regardless, it is a fine piece of automotive engineering. Comes with a good amount of upgrades and is also quite cheap for what you get. I mean, let's be honest, it's the Benefactor Panto. For the San Andreas Flight School update, we had the Invitero Coquette Classic. It is a nice looking car and once again was the only car to be added in this update. It has a good amount of customizations as well for an older car, and it also has a topless variant as well that you can change by just going into Los Santos Customs, which is pretty nice. Most cars that have a convertible option, you have to choose between the hardtop or convertible. This you don't have to choose, you can change it in Los Santos Customs whenever you like, and that is very nice. For the last team standing update, we have the Furore GT. It was a very easy pick for best car because it was the only car that was added as part of this DLC once again. It is quite a cool car though that you don't see too often as well. Matter of fact, I can't recall the last time I've seen a Furore GT besides mine. It looks great and sounds pretty good as well if you'd like to take a listen. For Festive Surprise 2014, we have the Vapid Slam Van. It is nothing too special in the grand scheme of things though. This update brought with it a clean version of the Rat Truck and 2 reskins of existing cars. The Slam Van is decent for what it is though. It's a cool truck that doesn't really have anything going for it. The Benny's version is cooler and is on this list actually, but this was the only actual new car to be added in this update, and ultimately that is what it came down to. It does have a surprisingly good sound as well if you'd like to take a listen once again. For the heist update, we have the Armored Kuruma, by far the best car to use in free mode for a very long time, even today. It was bulletproof to most guns in the game and was very affordable at around $500,000. It used all the same modifications from the regular Kuruma as well. The Insurgent was a close runner-up, but the Kuruma is faster, and back then explosive resistance didn't matter nearly as much as it does today because there weren't vehicles like the Oppressor Mark II and Ruiner 2000 etc. to protect it against. For the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 update, we have the Sterling GT. This was a very hard choice competing against the Osiris. What it comes down to ultimately is uniqueness and current viability however. The Sterling GT now has the option for HSW and is an absolute rocket with the equipped. Probably the best car in its class for sure with HSW equipped. The Osiris was good in its time period but now has been phased out unfortunately. The Sterling GT just barely takes it for me, and it does have a good amount of mods as well. For Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2, we have the T20, an absolute no-brainer pick for me. The T20 quickly reached the level of fame that the Zentorno had in such a short amount of time. It was a great car to use for races and was also quite expensive as well, meaning once again if you had this car, you had serious money. Well, at least for 2015 standards. It does not have that much mods, but in my opinion, it doesn't need any. With its active arrow, it doesn't need a spoiler. This car is just timeless looking. For the Lowriders update, we have the Faction. It was another import from GTA 4 and is my favorite from the update, as most Lowriders in this update were pretty similar. What sets the Faction apart is the nostalgia factor and the fact that it has a donk variant, which is quite cool as well. The thing I hate about this car though is how it scrapes on basically anything. A major annoyance for me and a big reason why I don't drive this car too often. For the Halloween Surprise 2015 update, we have the Frankenstein. It was one of only 2 new vehicles added as part of this update. This update does come back every Halloween though, and these vehicles are always made available during that time, usually now in Simeon's because they were removed off of the websites. The Lurcher is cool, but it is just too long and slow to drive around casually, but the dude that's chilling in the back is pretty cool. For executives and other criminals, we have the Shafter V12. It is a fantastic sedan with an exhaust note that some call the very best in the game. It is also very affordable, making it a great car for grinding back in the day that could also carry friends, which was rare. But now, please take a listen to the exhaust and decide for yourself if it is indeed the very best. For the Festive Surprise 2015 update, we had the Declasse Tampa, which was actually another import from GTA 4. I was really happy to see this car get added to GTA 5, and Rockstar did it justice with having a good amount of mods as well. Once again, this was the only car to be added as DLC, so it was an easy choice. For the Lowriders Custom Classics update, we have the Vapid Slam Van Custom. By far stood out from the rest in this update. The mods on this truck are very unique, and this thing just looks so damn good in so many ways. By this point though, cars like the Banshee 900R and Sultan RS have also been added as well, but they didn't come in a standalone update, so I didn't really include those in any update. It was more of a quality of life update, so that's why I didn't include those, but the Sultan RS would have to be my pick if I had to choose between those two. From further adventures in finance and felony, the X80 Proto was another clear choice to me. This car just looked absolutely crazy back then, and some likened it to the Batmobile if you painted it correctly. It was also a good competitor in racing as well for a while. The X80 is well known to everybody, but is rarely seen nowadays as it has just been phased out. For cunning stunts, we have the RE7B. It was the best car in racing for a very long time, even after this update released. It also had a speed glitch that made it crazy fast when curb boosting that stood in the game for a while after as well. Mods weren't anything crazy, but that wasn't the point. This car was made for the track and absolutely dominated doing its thing. Now we have Bikers. Now obviously because of the name, not many cars released in the Bikers update. The Tornado Rat Rod was still a solid pick though, as it had very unique styling with its rear tires being absolutely beefy and it lacking a hood and front fenders. This car also reminds me of the car that Dom used in the Fast and the Furious in Cuba to help his cousin resolve some debt. I believe it is actually called the Fate of the Furious, it's part 8. Rockstar couldn't have based it off that exact car though, as this update predated that movie, but it's a cool tie-in regardless. For import-export, we have the LG Retro Custom. It was a very close decision to the Rocket Voltic. What it ultimately came down to is what I consider a car. The Rocket on the Voltic crosses that line to a special vehicle to me, and that's what it ultimately came down to. The LG Retro Custom has also held up amazingly to the test of time. You still see these things everywhere. I still drive mine pretty often. I love it. It's a nice sounding car. It's just a great car overall at a fair price with great mods as well. For gun running, we have the Night Shark. It is probably still the best vehicle to drive around free mode to this day. It has great rocket protection and also has bulletproof windows optional, although I like to not have them to throw sticky bombs. The Night Shark is just a grinder's dream and is also reasonably priced as well. Next up for Smuggler's Run. Now the Vigilante does have a rocket on it, which does cross that line to a special vehicle, but there were less options this time, seeing as Smuggler's Run was kind of an update dedicated to planes, so the choice didn't come down to it being a special vehicle or not. The Vigilante can also be used during missions, which is greatly helpful, but it is quite expensive. If I had to choose a non-special car from this update though, it would probably be the Vision. For the Doomsday Heist, the Pariah was by far the best sports car to come out of this update to use in races, free mode. For the longest time, it was just a great car, and it is still a great car. This update brought heavy hitters like the Deluxo, the Sentinel Classic, the Silvestre. It was a hard choice, but it ultimately came down to practicality, and the Pariah is just insanely fast with good mod options as well. For the Southern San Andreas Super Sport Series, that's a lot of S's, we have the Rune Cheburek, which is obviously the best car to be added in the game. Its cardboard body kit produces so much downforce, it actually twists the chassis. It comes at an absolute steal of a price as well. No competition could outclass this thing. For after hours, we have the Scramjet. It's just too much fun not to pick. This update also brought the Jester Classic, but both are good for their own reasons. The Scramjet barely beats it in terms of enjoyment though. Aside from constantly playing the game of try not to land in a pool, it's a blast to use and is also very practical. Next up, we have the Arena War. Now I will break this down into two choices because this update did add many cars. My pick for the actual Arena War vehicles is the Vapid Future Shock Imperator. I love it because it can have nitrous and still look like a regular car without all the crazy mods and all that. My pick for just regular cars though would be the Italy GTAO. It's still a great sports car today at a very fair price with good mods available as well. For the Diamond Casino and Resort, we have the Gauntlet Hellfire, a very easy pick just out of sheer demand from the community. Everybody had wanted a Challenger at this time, and we only had the original Gauntlet, which was very outdated at this point. Even in 2013 it was outdated. This car is still being driven like crazy. It's not uncommon to join lobbies with at least 4 of these things driving around. It's just a great car at a good price too, which I really appreciate because Rockstar could have charged like 3 mil for this thing and people would have paid it either way. I know I would have. Next up, we have the Diamond Casino Heist. The Dinka Sugoi was more of a personal pick for me. I love the FK8 Civic Type R and think that it gets more hate than it deserves. This update added a ton of variety in cars though, so I can see it going one way or another. All of my JDM heads out there though will likely agree that the Sugoi or maybe the Blista Kanjo was the coolest car from this update. For the Los Santos Summer Special, we have the Coquette D10. Once again, another choice just made out of popularity. The C8 Corvette at this time was fairly new as well, and seeing it in GTA Online was very cool. It had good options for customizations as well, and it wasn't too expensive once again. For the KO Perico Heist, we have the Toreadors. It's a very nice looking car that happens to have rocket boosters and the ability to go underwater as well, which only adds to it. Not many actual cars were added in this update though, so this was another easy pick. The Vito Classic is another great pick and is definitely the runner-up, but it's not really a car, it's a go-kart. Next up, we have the Los Santos Tuners. Now this update added so many cars that the car community had been asking for. There are just so many options that it truly comes down to what you like in this update, as most of these cars are pretty on par with each other. I think the Jester RR though has to be my favorite from this update. The handling is great as well as the mods available. The realistic feel it has is also nice. It's just a nice car. It looks just like the Mark V Toyota Supra in real life, but once again, this update added a ton, so it really is all about personal preference. For the Contract, once again, an update that added so many great cars with great variety between them that it comes down to preference. I would have to say though, if the community only had to choose one car from this update to keep, it would be the Buffalo STX. Once again, another highly requested vehicle to be added, and Rockstar did a pretty good job at making it, aside from the rear. It comes at a fair price with the Monty Tech available, which is only benefiting the appeal, and it is a great car to drive in free mode because of it. Next up, we have the Criminal Enterprises. The Vigero ZX was once again the popular choice from this update, but lots of great cars were added in this update, like the Audi R8, which we already had but was quite old at this point, in the Obey 9F. As a Honda guy though, the Kanjo SJ and Postlude were definitely my favorites. Next up, for Los Santos Drug Wars, we had the Entity MT. It was probably the most anticipated car to be added, but not necessarily the most requested car to be added, meaning people were expecting the car but not actively asking for it. The Entity MT for me is a very underwhelming car though. It revs so high and it makes it seem like it's going fast even with the HSW, but it tops out like 130. It's just not a very impressive car and it's very expensive. The 300R in my opinion is the better car from this update, but lots of people had been expecting a Koenigsegg Jesko to be added, and they got their wish in this update. For San Andreas Mercenaries, some people might have expected me to say the Italy GTO Stinger TT, but I personally hate that car. I hate the way it handles. It's way too expensive, way too beefy. I just hate it. And instead, I chose the Chad pick, which was the Walton L35. It's such a nice truck with a good amount of mods as well. It's just nice to drive around the trails of sandy shores and just admire the sheer beauty of the truck. For the Chop Shop, we have the Turismo Imaggio. Has to be the best car from this update. As a fan of the G35, the FR36 would probably be my personal pick, but in terms of overall practicality, the Imaggio beats it out tenfold. The Imaggio has F1-like handling as well. It really does make you feel like you are glued to the road in this car and makes it fun to drive as a result. For bottom dollar bounties, by far the worst update in the game, but that's not part of the point. We have the Benefactor, Vorschlag, Hammer, Vorschlag, I don't know. Whatever the car is, it's a beauty. Something I love about this car though is its interior. It actually has a pretty good looking interior, pretty realistic. This does lead me to believe that this car was an export from GTA 6 though, because it almost looks too good. Whatever the case is, hopefully more cars like this are released before GTA 5 Online gets cut off, but Who knows? The clock is ticking. And that is the best car from every single update. Some updates were tough to pick from, and if you did have different opinions, please let me know what you think, and also subscribe and leave a like as well. It really does help on my channel and the YouTube algorithm, and I deeply appreciate it. And if you'd like to be like Byron here and get your name on the license plate on one of my cars in GTA Online, all you have to do is subscribe and press the button that replaces it that should say join. And that is all. Have a great day or night or evening, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.